If you can't be in the field chasing gun dogs, the next best thing is talking about it.
Join Wade and Thomas as we discover the people, the places, and the birds, and of course, the gun dogs that make upland hunting our passion.
This is the Setter Tales Podcast.
Hey, hello everybody again. Welcome to the Setter Tales Podcast with Wade and Thomas. It's been a little while since we've been on the mics, trying to get back in the swing of things. Mid-August, weather's still a little warm, but we can kind of see down the road that bird season won't be that far off. A couple of things we want to take care of real quick is tell you that tonight we're going to be doing a segment we're going to call Open Fields, kind of a little rebranding that we're doing. And basically it's Open Fields, open to any kind of questions you may have about what we're doing in our kennels, in our hunting, training, those things. We want to hear the questions from you. Hopefully we have some input and some experience that can help you out. We have been getting a few questions, and we'll talk about some of those in a little later tonight. If you have questions, make sure that you direct those to Open Fields and to our email address. And Will, what's that address that you need to send those to again?
That is settertails@protonmail.com.
There you go.
So just go right into the subject line and put Open Fields. That way Will knows what it's for, and he'll get us he'll get us the question, and we'll answer it the best we can.
What we hope to do is every so many weeks, when we get a chance, we will do one of these segments without a guest, and it'll just be a chance for us to catch you up on what's going on in our dog's situation and in our hunting world. And we do have some things to catch up on, because the last time we saw most of you, some pretty cool things have happened in both the Big Marsh Kennel and Sweet Point Kennel. And Thomas, what's going on right now in your neck of the woods?
Well, I went from 5 dogs to 13. So CJ had 9 very, very healthy puppies. So we had 5 males and 4 females, and she did an all-dayer. It started at 6 in the morning. She's staying with my mom and dad because I'm on the road for work, and it's just easier for them to, in case she did it while I was gone at work, they can catch her, and they're retired. So 6:07 or something, I got a text.
Wow.
We got puppies.
Look at that.
And they're just over 2 weeks. So they were, as you can see, that was like day 10 already. So they are moving around, opening their eyes.
Got them on the old hot plate.
They love that hot plate, but it's been so warm.
That's a pretty cool piece of equipment. And just so people that are seeing this for the first time, explain what that is, Tom.
So I bought this whelping box, and I had to do a complete rebuild, but this is just kind of a good way for the puppies to go over and get warm, especially if it's cold winter. They can stay on that. There's 2 modes of heat. I have it on the low. If you keep it on the high, they won't stay on it very long, and if it's warm like it is down there, that garage is probably, try to keep between 70 and 75. But it's so humid, and this is like an underground garage at my parents' house. So those puppies will just go right on there, lay down. Mama can go lay on the other side of the whelping box. She can go out and lay on her bed, and she doesn't have to worry. She can have her distance, and then she goes right down in there and lays. And we just looked at the video, and it's probably 70 degrees down there today, and she's just laying in that whelping box with them. She's got her head on that heating source. I thought, man, that's got to be warm. But they learn to just kind of, that's where they like to be. So,
and those puppies, if they start getting too hot, they know enough to move off of that.
Oh yeah,
they'll actually move off that plate for a while out into the other areas of the whelping box, and back and forth. And so that's pretty interesting to watch that with the pups. And so
I got that one little gal in the middle. She likes it there, but she was kind of the smallest of the litter. She's caught up now, but she stays under the kickboards on the side. She stays close to that hot plate, and then she'll move over. But now that it was warm, like yesterday, it was 96 degrees when I got off the golf course.
Bring that picture up again, Will, if you will. Okay. For people that aren't familiar with whelping box and are looking at this picture for their first time, or if you notice, there's a board that runs down those edges, and Thomas can explain what that does. What's the purpose of having that banister, if you will, or that board that runs around the edge like that?
Well, a lot of people use different things. I went with wood this time. I had PVC before. I've tried different things, but that's just giving them puppies a good place to get out away from mom. Mom's coming in there to plop down. I have noticed that CJ likes spending time in there with them. She's got a nice fluffy bed and a Karanda bed right next to her, the nice cool cement, and she gets up in there. So when you get a big leggy dog like her in there trying to stretch out, you're either going to push on the puppies, but
Yeah.
after,
It gives a void in there so that those puppies don't get, compromised where
Yep.
the dog is crushing them in there in them corners, those tight
Yep.
little corners and edges. It just and like you said, I think we had wood in ours, but I've seen PVC and other kind of things. But
Yeah.
you always need something there
yeah,
to avoid that.
I use like 3/8 inch plywood for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Thinking of it, probably showing a little thicker because if I get in there and kneel down, I kind of cracked it. But this was my first time with this style with the heat. So you
So-
got to raise it up off the ground 3-4 inches because it kind of looks like a speaker if you're looking at it. But they're a little spendy. They're about $300, but I think they're worth it. It's just, in that kickboard on the outside, that also keeps them pups if they're getting warm. And as you can see, they pile on each other. They can get under there. They just fit under there and they lay down and then nobody can crawl on top of them. They can just kind of do their own thing and be happy. And yeah, it's crazy. They're just going to hit that 3-week mark on Thursday. And most of the eyes, they're all open. The males that are a little bigger got big old blocky heads on 'em. They're still a little squinty, but the female that I have spoken for myself, she's got her eyes wide open, and I had her picked out from the start. I think, Will, you might be able to see her if you could bring that back up. We've kind of picked her out. I think that's the little gal in the middle. She's a little bigger now, but if you looked at it from a different angle, which I didn't have a good angle of her, it's actually a heart on her back. So the sire, I didn't supply a picture, but he has a black head or a white head and black solid kind of some spotty ears, and then he's ticked all the way through. But most of them pups all have a distinct mark that
Very
dad
cool.
put on him, and it's just a spot right at the base of the tail, goes up the tail about a quarter inch. So I know people are going to ask, I did do the dew claws. Reason for that is Iowa, when that snow gets crusty, there's the boys. Now that bottom one, he come out last and he came out backwards. So she started at 6 in the morning. I think he came out at 2:30. I let her out. She went potty after the first 6. I thought, hey, that's pretty good for a first litter. He averages 9 to 10 per litter. And she kind of gave me that look in her eyes like, uh-oh, something's going to happen. She ran into the
Yeah,
whelping box, popped 2 more out, and I thought, she's done now. We got 8. And then she kind of acted like she struggled a little bit for about 10 minutes. And then out he came, and I thought, well, he might not have made it.
What's interesting about the puppies, especially when you have multiples, a big litter like this, and you were talking about the last guy being breech, which is the term we use when they don't come head first, they come, butt first. But and in our litter that we had a few years ago, Major, which is the dog most of the people have heard about and seen on some of the video stuff we do. Major was actually the first puppy of a 9-puppy litter, and he was breech right out of the chute. He's turned around, and our vet had said, Wade, if you can get that first puppy out successfully, then everything's going to click. Everything will start happening because the puppies are all going to be in that canal, and they're all going to be kind of, getting ready in position. And right out of the chute, of course, Major doesn't follow the directions, and he ends up being in their breech. But luckily, it didn't last too long because about the time I'm getting ready to panic, I'm wondering what the hell am I going to do? Am I going to have to pull him out of there? Or do I wait or what? Adeline had a contraction and took care of that. But it's very interesting how that all works. And to know how the cycle is going to be with your puppies, like what to expect the first week and into week 2. Now, obviously, you're at that phase where the eyes are opening. you've already handled the dew claw situation, because usually that first week you got to take care of
Yeah, in past litters of other dogs I've had, it's usually they say 3 to 5 days. I try to do it on day 3 or 4. I didn't do it personally. I hadn't done it for so long. I have a buddy that has litters and he's excellent at it. And I called him. I said, "Hey, do you feel like doing me a big favor?" And he goes, "What do you need?" And I said, "I need you to come cut dew claws." No problem. So he came in and he called me on the phone as he was pulling in my parents' driveway. I was headed home and he goes, "Do you want me to do the tails too?" I like, "No, no." He goes, "I don't know. I'm not a bird
It's
hunter."
always a
So,
comedian, you know.
well, I haven't questioned him enough to see if he was joking or not. I was like, "Do not cut those tails." I said,
No.
"Or I'm gonna cut you in half." He's
Or
like,
my-
"Okay, you
My
don't get
vet
so
did the
mad."
same thing. She came out and went, we took care of that. You did want them tails, yeah, no,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not a
Yeah,
funny
as soon as
joke.
I had, it wasn't
in the
funny. It's
setter
not a
world,
funny,
so-
yeah, not a funny joke
So-
for setter guys at all.
So I'm excited. We got the little girl named. We're gonna wait before we release that yet. So all the dogs go after a song. So
Oh, okay.
so as soon as I come up with what male I'm gonna keep and
cool.
the song, I will release that. So that'll be cool.
And we were talking about that. So you may still have a couple that are not spoken for,
I think
right?
I have a lot of interest. I just haven't got that. I'll take one, but
Yeah.
I
Hey,
think for sure one's
talks-
going to Montana.
talk's cheap. You got to
I
get
know.
that money
And
down.
I've been our last guest, Kelly Bryan. I've been just sending him pictures constantly. He goes, "Oh, those are nice."
Now, see, I like that one with that black head with that white down its kind of down the middle. That's the one
Yeah.
I really, that right there,
Yeah,
right there.
That's probably the little gal that's probably going to stay
That's
with
a cool.
us.
That's very cool.
And she seems to be the most active. You know what I thought was crazy is I thought usually I'll miss it. The last couple litters I've had, I've missed it. She's had it when I was gone or whatever, and my mom was down there just with the female. The 2 lab litters I had only had one, so you know it's like, well, missed out. You know, we took her to the vet the first time. It's like we have to take her to the vet, get an X-ray because this is just not good. And when they have one, and she was empty, but I called the vet that did my ultrasound. And I go, "Hey, I had pups." She goes, "Oh, did all 3?" And I said, "No, all 9." And she goes, "We only saw 3 on the ultrasound."
She's
I
thinking
said, "Well, they
about,
were hiding."
She's thinking about that income that she's going to have rolling in there. 9 puppies coming in the office for vaccinations and everything else. I do think, folks, you know, like the Decorah Eagle Nest cam. I think Thomas is going to have to get a cam in that dog box so we can watch these
Well,
puppies develop.
I do have one, but I thought about it, but you can't put up at a live feed, and then there's other personal stuff in the background and my nieces are what I thought was cool. They just want to hold them and play with them. I said, "Let's just let mom be the boss for the first couple weeks, and I'll handle them." But they're down there about 3 times a day looking and petting mama, and they know the rules, and they're 15, 16 years old. I'm like, let's just wait until we get them outside, get them moving around. Let's get a round of shots in them and wormings before anybody messes with them. And they're down there all the time. But it was cool that they got to come as soon as they found out puppies were being born. It's summertime. They were out of bed before 8 o'clock. So I just sat down there with her, and I watched all but 2 be born. So it was kind of neat for me. And
Very
2
cool.
were just cleaning up when I went down there. I thought, you had 2 more. Just kept, there's another one. But CJ has been nothing but she's kind of like a fart and skillet type of dog, just can't sit still and moving around. And it's just like, as soon as that first pup come out, it was just like,
It's kind of amazing how
I was truly impressed in how great she's raised them. And she doesn't leave, I let her out, they let her out and go potty, and, dad ties her up. She's got a big zip line. She's like, I know hunting season's coming. So she's up and down. She's got it just wore down to dirt. But she comes in and counts every puppy, and she did the other day, and we were holding one, and she looked around and kind of looked at me in
the
panic, and
inventory wasn't right.
we got it right here, and then but it's funny, those pups. I mean, the last one come out breech. I thought, oh, wasn't moving very much, and she cleaned him off and got the sack off of him, and before she even got him cleaned, he was already crawling over and latching on. I thought, wow, and the other night she finally calmed down, and I was working on something in Dad's garage, and they started yipping and yapping. They're like, "Okay, Mom, we're hungry. Come in here." And she kind of pushed them all over and laid down, and them little farts were fighting. They were upside down on their backs, little tails are spinning in the air, and
Yeah.
they're fighting. But she's doing good with her milk. You know, they're all fat and healthy,
Good.
and man, I think as much as they eat, and they're barking and growling at each other already, rolling around trying to get to that food source.
That's a fun age. I mean, obviously they're here in the next couple of weeks when they start getting up and moving around and they start fighting and wrestling with each other. That's
Oh,
always,
yeah.
always kind of fun too. And
No, that's the bed that CJ stays on. I just flipped it upside down because it's a flat spot. I was scrubbing and disinfecting the wood, and I sealed that up with a sealant. So I mean, it scrubs right
the
up.
hardest part of having a litter like this is giving them up. You
Yeah.
know, any of them, because they're just so, they're all great dogs, and so, now you look at the litter like that, like I did. You look at the 9 here. You got 9 puppies, and you go, okay, who's the superstar?
Yeah.
Which one is the superstar? And there's probably one in there somewhere. And
Yep.
part of that will be DNA, and part of that will be opportunity and experience and exposure as well, as what dog gets that exposure to take it to that next level. But that's the thing that always intrigues me, is kind of like which one, which
Yeah.
one is gonna.
And it'll be
turn out.
nice once they get up running around and everybody gets their new home, and I'll be out working dogs, and you'll be able to take them along. They'll be big enough they're not going to go on a mile hike, but they can come along.
Yeah.
CJ was 8 weeks old the first time I took her, and we'd shot some 22s, and she was playing in the yard with somebody, and I didn't bother. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to take her hunting with me, and went down this ditch on the edge of a bean field. And next thing I know, she's 100 yards away, and I go, I got to run that puppy down. She just went out and went hunting, and then she heard the gunshots, and that's all it took. She was right with the other dogs as much her little legs could go, and I think it was Thanksgiving. She was 8 weeks the first time, and then the second time I took her just with one dog. I took her with Boomer because was gentle, and he doesn't care. Puppies will pull on his ear and nip at him, and he loves it. And he went on point on a rooster, and that little turd come in and just locked on right with him, and that bird got up, and I had to shoot it. It's like, well, she knows with the gunshot, and that's all it took. And then just hunting, just keep hunting her, and had her listening. And
So there's going to be some milestones as you have a litter like this. There'll be these milestones that take place during this 9-week, 10-week period. You obviously are into week 3.
yep,
Eyes opening, that's a big one. The first dog that you see that tries to get out of that box or does get out of the box, it sounds like that's already happened.
yeah.
Which usually don't see that till a little later. But
She had climbed up on that
Yeah.
edge, that kickboard, and I think I got that up about 3 inches. So so she was up on there with both front paws, and I was just got done. I had a golf tournament yesterday that we didn't do well in, but Mom was watching her on the cameras, and she goes, "Hey, your little girl's climbing." I'm like, "No way." She's like, "Yeah, she's climbing out." And she was just kind of standing on there, and then she'd probably been there for 10 minutes by the time I got there. She was just kind of up there, resting her chin on there. But they were wanting to pile in, and I think she was getting hot. She's like, "I'm getting away from all
Yeah.
these guys." So
So this is a great opportunity then for any of you out there that have a young litter on the ground or are getting ready to whelp some puppies. Send us some questions. Obviously, Thomas is right in the middle of this litter situation, so he's a vast amount of knowledge about what's going on there. So if you have any questions, let us know. Get those fired into us. As we spoke earlier when we opened the show, I'm trying to think. Yeah, we're obviously the medical stuff, and it sounds like you pretty much keep the puppies, as most of us do, isolated from everybody outdoors that
Yeah.
could bring in a parvo or some
Yeah,
disease, because before those puppies really have had a chance to
Yeah.
get some immunity. So what's
Yeah, and
what's
I
your
just
theory on that? What's your ideas on that?
oh, I don't know if it's a big deal, but it's just me. I just want them to imprint as much off of mom as they can. You got, when the girls go down there, it's one at a time. I got I think it's like a 4 or 5 by 8, just a short kennel, Yeah, her food and water's in there, and they don't go in there. You can be on the outside, pet on mama, make some noise, talk, but leave the puppies be. I know how to handle them. I know what's going on, and I'm not worried about them dropping them or nothing. But I just want Mama to imprint those puppies as long as possible. She's already when they're cooing and mess around. You act like they're fighting. They're just puppies, and they're sucking on each other's noses and ears, and one will start making noise like, okay, that's not mom. Leave me alone. And I watched her. She separates them. She's doing a fantastic job. I'm like, let's not break the cycle. She obviously, when somebody's down there, she's like, let me out. I want to get away from
So
these dang things. So
she spends her time teaching manners,
yeah,
basically.
I just let her do her thing
And
right now.
that's how these puppies have to really learn. I mean, is
Yeah.
from understanding what's allowed and what isn't allowed,
Yeah.
and mom will take care of that. And so, what's interesting is at weaning time is to see how mom takes care of those kind of situations.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they can get pretty, I wouldn't say ugly, but I mean they can make a point.
Yeah.
They can make a point to those pups that you're not eating it. You're weaned. You don't be trying to nurse, and you need to be staying over there where you are. It's just fun to watch, and but it's so critical and so important
Yeah.
at this
So
point.
when they come to weaning time, I'll probably bring them back to my place, and they'll be separated. I'll let her in the morning, let her be with them for a while, and then they'll have their own kennel just like the big dogs. And I'm gonna board it all up so they can't squeeze and get into a situation where it would be dangerous for them. So, won't be a big water bucket in there. So I do know when they get older, you don't want this big water bucket. So one, they don't tip it over on themselves, and two, they don't crawl in it and drown. So
Yeah.
they'll have a small enough short water source that they don't have to worry, I don't have to worry about them falling in and drowning in one. And so they'll be I can tell it's a pretty smart litter. I put the fan on and I could tell they were all getting pretty warm the other day. It was hot and humid. I moved the fan a little bit towards the whelping box. I had it shooting kind of past it so CJ could get out and cool off and chill out away from them. But now they're figuring how to move to the other side of that whelping box and get a little bit of that fan.
Interesting.
So they're smart. You can see that one pup has a fly on it. So you even open the door, the flies come. I got fly strips hanging everywhere and trying to keep the flies down. But she is 100% on fly control all the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're excited and
Well, what's funny is what's fun to watch is how much room disappears the bigger the pups get when all 9 of them try to nurse at the same time. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of room in
whelping
there.
box is pretty full. I looked at her on her about midnight last night, and she was out laying away from them. But we just looked at her. She was laid down, stretch off across there, and everybody was eating. But I'm betting with the next week and a half, they're going to be. I'm gonna have to cut the hole in the front of the whelping box so they can go get in and out because they'll be falling.
Well,
out.
that's no, there's nothing better than puppies. I mean, that's great. And I know it's been a while since you've had a litter, and
Yeah, we're excited.
I think it's been a while for us. We may be looking at doing something this coming spring in February. We'll see how it all goes. As you know, breeding dogs is not an exact science.
No.
So
And
kudos to you. You got it done this time. I know you'd tried a couple times in the past and came up unsuccessful, but this time obviously you got the job done and got a great litter of pups. So.
yeah, and I got to thank Sean Derrick on that down at Aaron's Kennels. He, I knew that he is probably one of the best trainers and breeders in the country as far as it comes to English setters, and he did everything right. He had a beautiful facility. He took care of it. He kept me updated. Like, hey, we had to do it. We had to kind of tie her up, and she just wasn't thinking about it. Well, then when after they got the first deed done, he says we're going to get her a couple more times, and everything was gentle. She was happy. And, you know, I have a picture on my phone. I'll send that to Will. Maybe we can post that on our Facebook page. But when she had number 6, I took a picture. I was sitting in there with her, and she was smiling. She's like, yeah, look what I did, you know? And then I heard her bark. That's when she wanted out. And then it was, oh, more puppies. But we have some, you know, we have some questions, some comments on the podcast.
We do.
We should probably get it. I could talk puppies for
Yeah.
another 2 hours.
Before we get to that, I just was going to update because it kind of ties into with the breeding thing. We tried this over at Iowa State. I made a trip over there 10 days ago to do a semen collection on Major. Many years ago, I tried that with Sweet Lou and didn't get it done, and I regretted that I didn't go back and try again. So anyway, we took Major over there. Dr. Beechler over there at Iowa State has, you know, they collect dogs, different types of dogs, and anyway, so Major, we took him over there, and the process is obviously to collect the dog and to analyze the quality of the semen, and then depending on how much sample that you have and the quality of sample, then they basically will freeze that, and then they bank it there, and they basically monitor that sample. And so what's really interesting is that you know, once you get that sample in the bank, it's there for a long time, you know, years and years and years. And so realistically, you know, someone could breed, you know, Major long after Major and I both are gone, you know, if they choose to be. I know of somebody that bred a dog here a couple of years ago, and the dog had been deceased for 28 years. So it's just kind of a cool, interesting kind of topic, I think, and just what they do over there and how they do it. Unfortunately, yeah, there's a guy. Unfortunately, they were able to get a sample that I would have been able to use for a breeding. It would have probably been a successful breeding as far as the amount goes, but we didn't get enough to do a long-term collection to be frozen. Because you lose a little bit of the semen, or the quality of it diminishes after it's frozen for a certain amount of time. So they need a larger amount to really compensate for how long you're going to have it frozen. And since we had such a small sample, we just Dr. Beechler didn't really think it was worth freezing that sample. Now that said, we are planning on trying again, and as soon as they'll get a female dog in there that they have for some reason that's in heat, that's when we're going to take the big guy back over, and hopefully that will be enough to get it done. But it's kind of cool. It's kind of a neat deal. We'd like to get Major since obviously since he's in the direct line of Sweet Lou, we'd love to have him in the bank for long term, and you know, not that we might use it, but maybe someday somebody would, Travis or somebody would down the road. We'll see. But it's just nice to have.
The thing with collecting, you know, you're going to have different opinions on that, Wade, and some people are like, well, you never want to collect because you just want to have something better. Major's at that age where if you haven't bred him yet, that if you want puppies out of him, you know, something could happen at his age. And you have that, you know, just like Boomer, when I had him, we collected him and he had a Rockstar sample when we tried to breed to Darby.
Mm-hmm.
But,
yeah,
you know, and then he got sick and now he can't breed. So we probably should have collected him but at least you'll have that in the bank if you want to use it. If you can't, you know, especially if you have a female that's having a problem breeding or something, it's, you know, it's mainly for yourself. And when you do these collections, you have to have a really, I would say, ripe for the picking female that's in heat at that point where she's ready to be bred, in order for that to really kick that male's brain into high gear. We tried it with I had a female in heat, and I said, she's coming out, but we can't get the collection till tomorrow. And so I was down there with this poor dog with a cotton swabs, you know, getting all that, put it in the Ziploc, and then put it in the fridge. But it was enough to get his mojo going, but it wasn't quite enough to get it all the way. So you have to have a really,
that's true.
Almost got to be standing there.
And I knew that because when of the Sweet Lou experience that I had in whatever year that was, a friend of mine, he had a German short hair, and he took this male over there, and I rode over with him, and I took Sweet Lou with the challenge to be we were going to collect both dogs, his dog and my dog. So he goes in there first with his dog, and I mean, but it was the same deal. They had these little Q-tips that they had saved, and I swear to God, they passed that in front of that German short hair, and boom, and then they tried to use that or a similar kind of thing on Sweet Lou, and he just wasn't buying it.
No.
He said, "No, that ain't going to do it for me." And so knowing that, I figured his son would probably be the same damn way, And so I took Ruthie. Ruthie was in heat. We had chosen not to breed her this time around since she just turned 2. But I thought, perfect. I'll take her along and use her, to tease him up, if there's a problem. So I did. I took her over there. Unfortunately, like you mentioned, she was going out. She was like 2 days from ending her cycle, but that's when the appointment was. I could, if I'd have got in there maybe a day or two before, maybe it'd been a little different. But we gave it a shot. We'll try again. But it is an interesting technique thing they do. We hope, and I've talked to Dr. Beechler about it. We're hoping to bring her on with one of her techs here in a future podcast that we do to give us talk a little more about the process and what they do, and how long they bank the semen, and got to drill down a little more into the details about what they do there. And then they do it for obviously not just dogs, but all kinds of livestock. In Iowa, we're collecting all kinds of cattle and horses and everything else. But we'll get them on hopefully in the future. So make sure you check that out if you have interest.
Yeah.
So
it'll be a process once you do it, and then they'll be doing progesterone tests on her when they do use it. If you don't do it naturally, but there'll be progesterone tests involved, and then most likely from the experience that I've gained with breeding dogs this way, and back in the black labs and the labs of the field trial, these dogs are on trial all year round, so they don't like doing natural breedings. So I found out that the best bet is probably surgical if it's not a fresh side by side. So it's just a tiny little incision, and they actually fertilize the eggs straight with that
we'll probably
fresh frozen stuff.
We'd probably go for a natural cover in the spring. What's nice is if you have both male and female, it makes it a lot simpler, because then I'm not worried about, do I get her over to your kennel at the right time and the right day, and or did we miss a window or whatever? And I will tell you, that window gets pretty narrow sometimes. You gotta, you and I both been through that.
Yeah.
You're a little early, and now all of a sudden you're almost too late. And it's within hours in there, and so it's kind of critical. But we'll talk a little more about that. We'll get one of our vets that we use here in Cedar Rapids from Fry Pet Hospital, Dr. Feuerbach, as she does a lot of reproductive stuff and has some expertise on there. And we'll get her on, hopefully, to talk about the different manners, different ways that we go about breeding dogs, whether it's, as you said, the semen that gets shipped in, or a natural cover, or whatever, AI, and how they do it and the process of doing that. But so switching gears, we got some other questions, and I think you mentioned that we've got a couple things that came in since we broke last time. What do we got? What are people interested in?
Well, we want to thank Park for reaching out to us, but he just says, I love the podcast. Become very interested in bird hunting out in the West. Will we have any shows featuring a Western bird hunter coming up? Preferably it'd be a setter or man or woman. And so we actually have been in contact with a couple people. We won't say any names. We're just, logistics are tough in the summer with kids stuff outside and getting dogs training, and usually when we're training dogs when it's hot, it's when we're recording. So if you can't get up in the morning and do it, and so we're working with a guy from California. Most of you'll probably know when I say it, but he is a chucker guide, or chuckers, and I think he goes after quail most likely. So we're going to get him on, and if you have some suggestions we'd love to get some people on here. This is this is our way of connecting everybody through the United States, and hopefully sometime we'll have our Ireland friends on here and just to see what everybody else is doing around the country and in the world as far as training dogs. And you know, obviously we're going to be a little more susceptible to people with setters, but you know, we'll take about, you know, take everybody. You know, we had Tyler on here. He's got setters, he's got Yag terriers, he's got
Oh yeah,
hawks, and
I think we've had almost every breed on, haven't we, so far? Or
We're-
somebody talking about them?
we're getting there. We are getting there, and we're
That's
going
good.
to
That's
focus
good.
on some of those things. So we are hearing you. So we are working on some people from out west, and yeah, we're excited. We got some really exciting things coming up in the future, and we're just going to keep trying to climb that ladder and get up there. So
Now, obviously, this time of year, you're obviously dealing with puppies, so you're busy, very busy. But most people now are transitioning kind of into that, getting their dogs into field shape and kind of doing some, depending on how hot it is, and they're kind of early morning kind of training session, trying to get dogs ready for the season to come. And there's a lot of different things you can do. What typically would you be doing right now with, I guess, with your other dogs? Just trying to, are you roading those dogs, or are you swimming them, or what are you doing?
luckily I have a large airing yard, so I let them out and they lap. But we do a little rodent here in the next few weeks. Now that it's getting cooler and darker in the evenings, I'll probably start running them a little more with the four wheeler. I got a running gear on it, and I got a good place to run them. But right now, with the older dogs that have all the experience, we just got to get them back in shape, get them back to thinking, hey, we're getting into hunting mode. We're not just playing around. Sis is my youngest. She's just about a year, a little over a year. So she had her first season last year, and I just kind of let her figure out what's going on. So she hold her points really nice, and if a bird got movie, she got a little, would move with the bird instead of just staying there till I got there. And so I'm going to work her on steadiness. So I'll probably get her up on a table, teach her that, and then we'll do some birds and some launchers, some pigeon launchers, and in the short hay fields and stuff where she can't see it, but I can really watch her and get her steadied up. And that'll be the big thing. Just getting them back into, okay, we're getting into hunting mode. We're not just running around having fun. So gonna get her steadied up, and the boys, they're just CJ, it's just gonna get her dried up, get her back into hunting shape, and she's pretty wore down. So we'll give her a couple weeks just to recover and get dried up. And she doesn't have this huge, luckily she's tightening up already. She's just got her milk, and so we'll get her kind of back into shape. And just that's just keep, if you don't let them get out of shape too bad, it's not as hard getting them in shape. So I suggest one of them when it is a little warm but not super hot. If you're doing runs like that, make sure they're quick. You don't want to overheat them. Even if you don't think it's that hot, you just got to remember they're low to the ground. It's hot. They have fur. They don't sweat like we can, and you just got to be careful. But our first few hunts are going to be probably coming up in September. If we do a little guiding or I have a couple youth hunts coming up, and they're going to be at a preserve, and it's like, okay, it's going to be warm. It's going to be warm early, so we got to get those dogs conditioned to the heat too.
Yeah, it can be pretty warm even up until the first part of October. It can get a little warm. And the cover, it's always going to be challenging through September. It always is.
Yeah.
Until we get that first frost, and really that hard freeze kind of knocks everything back. But yeah, it'll be here before we know it.
I know. I've already, I see Thursday morning the dogs were just barking to beat the band. I thought, what in the heck's going on? So right now, if you're noticing, if you keep up with it, the DNR, and I don't think South Dakota does it anymore, but like the Iowa DNR right now are getting close to the end of their survey. So they're going out at like right when the sun's up over the horizon. They're out driving the gravel roads and they're doing their counts. Since we've gotten rain finally, these birds, there's a lot of dew in the grass. So these birds are coming out into short mowed areas or onto the gravel roads to dry off. So I had 16 young birds. They were probably about the size, I don't know, they're probably 8 inches tall already. So you could tell they were a pheasant and they can fly, but there's like 16 of them right in the driveway, right out. They were getting dried off. So they're doing the surveys. The bird numbers look amazing. My buddy's a DNR and they go, how's your count going? He goes, well, first day I saw 12. Last year I saw 36 here. I said, well, it's not very wet. He went back out Saturday morning after that rain. It was foggy and dewy. He counted 50 on that roadside survey.
Wow.
So, and he had them to where they were brand new to they're almost flying. You could tell which between the roosters and the hens. So, I think we had a huge hatch in areas. I think some areas weren't because they were really dry the whole time, but the hatch is looking good.
That's good news.
So if you are running dogs in the big grass, just beware. We still have little baby pheasants running around. So find somebody with a hay field, somewhere you can observe this dog. You know, they've been cooped up, they haven't been running. So, you know, just get them out, run them, and get them in a hunting situation. Just, you know, that big heavy cover is probably not good yet. And plus, you got to worry about those grass-ons too. They're still pretty ripe and they like to travel. So until that frost knocks some nasty things down and, you know, instead of the dog hitting it and it's staying on the plant, it knocks it off after a frost. So kind of replants itself. So that is something you should be aware of when you are running the dogs in the grass like this. I see guys are getting excited. They're coming out and I was like, how many grass-ons are those dogs going home with that nobody knows? So kind of spooks me a little bit. So just beware and keep fresh water on you.
There's still ticks out there too right
and
now.
there are ticks. There are ticks.
And there will be for a while. So always, and setters, it's difficult with their coats. It is, and if you have a white dog, it's a little easier, but a lighter colored dog. But yeah, it's just, you got to be smart about it and you got to do the tailgate work
Yep.
after the hunt or after the workout to make sure that before you put your dog up that you've checked everything, make sure
Yep.
everything's good to go.
You know, keep their diet the same. I usually switch over around this time. I'll start switching, but I run the dogs on 2 different kinds of food. They're same brand, just a little different energy power. So right now they're on like a 26-16 or 26-18, and then here in the next few weeks, I'm gonna just slowly transition over. I'll mix 2 bags together, get them on the higher protein, higher fat. Let them get a little fat on them, but while they're building muscle and just that little more energy boost. So that's starting now. So as soon as the puppies start eating food, we'll just start going up. So that is another good tip I like to give out to people too. When you know, a lot of people feed the high pro all the way through. I just don't do it because they don't get as much exercise in the summer. And if you're not getting out as much, I get them out enough, but they'll get fat. So, and when you got setters that are full of energy and you're at work and you're not hunting them hard every
it's
weekend,
really
they have
good.
a lot of energy penned up and they want to run. So then when I let them out, it's hot, they run and then they're like, well, we're done. It's 10 minutes. We're done with, we're too hot. So, we do have a couple more comments and I know we were talking about this. If, we thank everybody for, you know, we're getting a lot of good people messaging us and saying that they're enjoying our podcast. So we 100% appreciate you guys sending us messages and some suggestions and one of them is they'd like to see more pictures of dogs and dogs on point. So, you know, if you guys are listeners or, you know, if you want to send us to our Facebook page, our messenger, we'll try and get some more pictures. Maybe we'll have a day where we'll just talk about some pictures and send us a story and we'll kind of talk about it and where you're from. And we want to hear your story. And that's just something that we can filter through and get through a couple podcasts and just kind of maybe show some pictures of some cool dogs and we'll maybe get them on our Facebook page or something.
Yeah, and if you have if you have an idea for a guest, for a topic to talk about in the podcast, let us know. Send us a name, you know, so we can check it out. That's our best method of finding some really good guests is in the past we've had a lot of our viewers have shared some information with us and and we've found some really good topics to talk about as a result of that. And, we talk about a lot of the things um, and they're good things, whether it's getting ready for the season. I mean, we talk about that every year, but it's so important. And maybe some people have heard it before, but it's always good to have that refresher and say, okay, just keep it in mind. Here's what you need to do, and here's the equipment that you probably need to have in a truck.
Mm-hmm.
Where at least this time of year, you don't want to get caught out there without water or without enough water and some of your basic supplies. As the season opens up and you're doing longer hunts and maybe you're traveling for hunts, then that list gets bigger
Yep.
and more complex. But there are some basic things, just the water and some basic first aid things just to keep in mind, not only for the dog, but maybe for yourself. Sometimes we aren't in the greatest shape either after a long summer. So, so it's going to take a little bit to get, at least get myself in game shape. It always is. There's that challenge as well. So keep that in mind, that you just can't jump into it and hope for the best. You got to be prepared, and that's when the hunting will be a lot more fun for everybody if you do it that way.
Be prepared. Always make sure you have the TP and the ibuprofen in the
Yeah,
center
and
console.
most of us have usually the timing is such that like my dogs in late summer usually are due to have some shots anyway, and
Yep.
so the vet usually does a once over on them anyway during that time of year right before we're considering hunting. That's a good idea, just to have everything checked out, have them gone over by your medical personnel, and then they'll be ready to go. But
Who's
yeah,
that guy with the black hair there?
well, sometimes that's been a while. That's been a while.
That's your old vest. It's still
Yeah, it had
looked
orange.
like
It
it-
was
it had
orange at
orange,
that
yeah.
time. It was orange at that time.
Yeah.
Actually, I retired that this year, as you know.
I thought maybe
and,
we'd put that in a frame.
Well, yeah.
And
I'm going to hang on to it. I just can't give it up. It's
I know
got too
we could
many.
just hang it up like a
got,
retired jersey and
It's got too many road miles
hang
on
it
it.
from the ceiling.
That
or
thing's
something.
been all over the country. But yeah, it's really kind of good stuff, and great dogs, memories of like he's going to have of dogs that are just getting started in their career, which is a really fun. But just we got to keep it going. And the reason we do this podcast is to encourage people out there listening that have the same passion we do for gun dogs and upland hunting, is to stay with it, stay with the sport. It can get complicated at times, but then it's not complicated. Sometimes it's pretty basic, but there's always people like us that you are willing to share and help you out. So get out there, try it, get behind somebody else's dog if you want to start to see what it's like. And then, hopefully you'll find yourself wanting to get a new puppy like one of his someday and take it to that next level. But that's kind of how we all started. We all started
Yep.
kind of hunting behind somebody else's dog or no dog at all, and then kind of went on up the ladder. And that's how we keep this thing going. And so, but only by you people out there listening and
Yep.
being our fans and letting us know and watching our show, can we keep things going and keep it fresh. And we hope to do that.
And if you have any questions on how to get started, feel free to shoot us a message. Wade and I are quite a few different opportunities that people we work with, especially the youth, but some of the ladies as well. We have some connections with people that get people out hunting and teach them everything they need to know, and we'll help as much as we can. Without somebody teaching somebody to what we're doing and why we're doing it in hunting, you're just not going to get that many people. So there's a lot of outlets and opportunities out there for people that are wanting to learn to hunt. So DNR has a Learn to Hunt mentor program, and our guest, one of our guests, Steph, has her Woods and Water project where she gets women out, and I think they hunted bowfish last week, and then they're fly fishing this weekend, and so she does a lot of things with that too. So we have a lot of outlets that we can help people if you want to try and get into hunting.
Yeah, one of the other questions I got the other day, I was someplace and somebody saw the box in my truck and they said, "Hey, what's the story on that?" And anyway, in the conversation, they were asking about what's the best way to travel with hunting dogs. And we both been in both. I mean, that's an interesting topic because everybody has their own impression of that. And as you know, I have a dog trailer, and I have a dog box. You have a dog box on your truck, and sometimes it's not the simplest to switch those out, in a minute or two. So you kind of, and I know yours are too, but mine kind of are in the truck, and it usually stays in the truck unless I need the bed for some other purpose. But typically you just want a good insulated box, somewhere where you can carry some equipment with you that you're going to need. We've got a lot of guys have camper shells. There's just a lot of different ways, and it kind of comes down to your preference. I have a trailer that'll haul 12 dogs, but it's more for long over the road trips if we're going to Montana or Kansas or someplace. And it's kind of the dog hotel. The dogs actually can kind of stay in that on the road as well. But it's not something you take for little short jumps here and there. But we have.
I may need to borrow that.
We have before. When we had the Ireland guys here. We there were 4 of them, and I had to get them all in my truck, and so I didn't have any room for gear in my truck, so I had to pull the trailer up to Thomas's place when we went up there and hunted some wild birds. But there are a lot of different ways to do it, and some people just have a crate that they put in the back of their truck. If you do that, make sure it's secured somehow, strapped in and insulated. Make sure you put a cover on it. Not a good thing for a hot and tired wet dog to get in a crate and go down the interstate, at 70 mile an hour at night when it's when it's 10 degrees.
So just know that,
just be smart about it.
Yeah, if you would be comfortable in that situation, that's usually where you're okay with the dog. So mine isn't insulated, but I make sure I got cedar chips and
some straw.
If it's cold, I'm getting some fresh air in there, but not all of it.
Yeah.
And they're warm. I've checked them. I've actually looked in the box, and it was colder and heck out. Where the dogs had fresh hay, dry. They were happy, and there was a little bit of condensation and a little bit of frost in there, and it's like, okay, what am I doing wrong? I just gave them a little more air, that went away, and then the dogs are, I left Kansas, it was cold, got to Iowa, it was even colder, and they were in there, they were just happy as can be. They were happy, they weren't hot, they weren't cold, they were just comfortable. And it doesn't have to be 80 degrees in there, and it doesn't have to be
You can
10.
keep them dry.
If you keep them at 35 to 50 degrees of this in the winter when they're got their coats on, they're pretty happy. I've heard of people thinking, oh God, it's cold out. They duct taped the vents shut, and they got all this hay, they got blankets, and they overheated their dogs.
Yeah.
So just be aware.
Yeah,
if you're on a trip, get out and check them every couple
They got
hours,
all kinds of, in the world of technology, you can put sensors in your dog boxes and everything else. So just be smart about it. But there are different, it's kind of comes to personal preference on what you want to spend, and how many dogs you're planning on hauling. Obviously I double up dogs, and that's pretty easy to do, but anyway, so I don't know. I think it's been fun tonight. I think we've got a chance to kind of catch up and talk about some subjects. Open fields, I think, is going to be a lot of fun for us. So anybody that is out there that wants to contribute to that, please do so. Again, go and subscribe to the podcast. That helps us. The numbers are numbers, and the more people that are watching, the better. So help us out there as well.
Yeah. So I'll actually do a little update with Will at some point. I'll get some pictures. We're going to get collars on puppies this week. So just to show you from day one to now. So it's just amazing how fast everything's going for us, and we're busy and we're ramping up for season. And I got my gear out the other day and made sure all that was still, if I needed to get anything new, my first aid kits. So I'm getting there. We're getting into that where it's getting cooler. So it's almost go time. So
from Thomas and myself here, thanks a lot for checking in and tuning in to Setter Tales podcast. One more time, we will see you soon. Next week, we'll got another guest that we're going to be pumping out to you, and we got a couple in the pipeline. I think they're going to be really great. And always remember, take somebody hunting.
Keep their nose in the wind.